Okay, I'm going to call the Monday, August 23rd, 2021 North Augusta City Council study session to order. And before I turn over to Mr. Clifford, there's just three announcements I want to make. This will be the last opportunity until we get in September as a full council that we'll be meeting again. This will not apply. This is for the live stream, since we don't have anybody in attendance, folks live streaming it who are watching it. This will not apply to everybody, but a lot of folks who use Austin Graybill Road and Exit 5. I just kind of want to give an update. I know a lot of people were shocked, dismayed, and even angry about what they experienced toward the end of last week and this weekend on Austin Graybill Road. And let me kind of preface my comments by saying this was not a city initiative, but by SCDOT. So let me kind of explain what happened. We have a new commercial development on Austin Graybill Road. And in order to meet SCDOT requirements, the left lane, if you've noticed, has been extended back from the stoplight on Austin Graybill to allow more stacking of cars that are needed to turn onto US 25. So a right-in, right-out median had to be installed to help facilitate the future traffic projections that indicated the stacking of the cars would block someone that wanted to turn left onto Austin Graybill from Market Plaza Drive, which is a road behind the food line, or turning left onto Market Plaza Drive from Austin Graybill. A road, though, has been built 1/10 of a mile down from the light on Austin Graybill. This road is literally right across from the entrance to the park and ride lot on Austin Graybill. So if you're coming from the food line, you will take a right onto this road behind the Burger King. You follow it 2/10 of a mile. I did it today, yes, I know. And you will come out on Austin Graybill. You can then turn left, and 1/10 of a mile, you'll be turning at the stoplight on US 25. If you want to go to the food line without getting on US 25 from Austin Graybill, you can turn left onto this road as well. You can begin to use the road right now. I used it today. I've talked to another citizen who's already used it as well. Now, the issue is we have reached out to the developer to find out when the street signs will be put up. This is a private road, so the city does not install them. So once we know that, we'll let you know. So I can assure you this has been an inconvenience for a lot of people, and you have had the right to be upset. The other important point is to understand that when SCDOT does a project, they don't always let us know in advance. The city does a good job of letting folks know in advance on projects we are doing, but unfortunately, we are at the mercy of DOT on those type of projects. However, council has asked our administrators to put a standard operating procedure in place, so in the future, if we are informed of a project driven by us, as mayor, we are informed of projects can be prepared to let citizens know in advance. Even though this was not a project driven by us, as mayor and on behalf of council, we apologize for this situation because it did impact a lot of people. We as a council and the city are striving to continue to communicate better, and we will put an update on social media site tomorrow with this information. So is that pretty much correct, Ms. Moody?
That's correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Can I ask something, Mayor? The private roads you're talking about, I mean, can they come back and say you cannot?
No, it's not a private road, meaning just for the city's not doing the road. Yeah, that's what I mean by private. I'm just saying, that's why we didn't put the sign up.
All right, okay. I just
I'm
didn't
sorry.
want the developers to say, I'm sorry,
No,
we
it's a
can't have all
public,
these
it's public. No, they
cut-throughs.
prove that with the
Okay.
planning.
They probably won't do that until the road has been accepted and everything.
Yeah.
That'll be part of the acceptance phase.
Yeah. So, all right, the second thing is, again, the last chance we'll do this. If you are interested in giving us an idea for the river event, it ends August the 31st. So this will, I've reached out to a couple folks who I know who are administrators of different social media sites, groups, and asked them to kind of get this out there again. So I want to let you know that. And the last thing for information, looking ahead, this will be the last time as a council we'll meet in August. So on Monday, September, so there'll be nothing next Monday, the 30th. Then on Monday, September the 6th is a Labor Day holiday, so all city offices are closed. So the next time council will be together will be on Monday, September the 13th, and that will be a 6 p.m. study session. And then the next city council meeting will be Monday, September the 20th, and we will have our public power hour at 5 o'clock, and then city council at 6. So I just want to kind of get that out there for folks on live stream.
Maybe we can get the drag boat races back for that river event.
Submit that on the application. Did they? Yeah. I don't want to hear about it. I want you to submit it. So at this point, I turn it over to Mr. Clifford for the study session.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'll turn to item 1, which is City Code review of the City Code of Ordinances, Chapter 22, Traffic and Vehicles. And Ms. Rachel Moody will be our lead on that today, so I'll turn the session over to her in her capable hands to talk you all through the parking ordinances and to hopefully get some guidance from the council. Rachel, over to you.
Thank you. And Chief is here also to answer any questions. A very short presentation. This is essentially us coming to you to get some guidance on what changes, if any, you'd like to see to this particular ordinance related to traffic and vehicles. We're specifically referring to fines for parking citations and non-payment processes. We've been enforcing on-street parking payments in Riverside Village for close to 2 years now, and through time we've noticed a few things that sometimes work, sometimes give us challenges when it comes to the way our code is written, and frankly some things that are not included in code that we may be able to incorporate into the future. This feedback and some of the things that we'll talk about come from not only city staff but our city residents. We do listen when they have concerns or complaints about the paid parking and citations, and we do take what they say to heart. And some of the things that are coming up for discussion tonight are directly from some of our citizens. So technically parking citations can be issued anywhere across the city. Up until a couple years ago when we started enforcing paid parking on the street in Riverside Village, there weren't many parking citations that were issued for parking violations. The last time the ordinance was updated to increase the fee for parking citations was in 2018. I believe it went from $5 to $20. So if you go to the next slide, please, Sharon. Thank you. This is a list from section 22-13 of all of the parking violation fines. So you can see all the city fines are a flat $20. This is what was increased in 2018. I have up there state fines. Set by state statute, there is a fine that we are required to enforce if an individual parks in a handicap zone without a permit. So primarily, while we do issue a number of the handicap parking in a handicap zone citations, for the most part we're issuing city fines in Riverside Village for overtime parking if they've stayed too long or any other type of parking violation. You go to the next slide. So this seems like a very simple slide, and it is, but there's a few nuances in our parking citation issuance process that we want to cover tonight. So the citation is issued by a public safety officer, and this is actually set by our municipal code. In other communities, parking citations can be issued by code enforcement officers or folks who are not necessarily a certified law enforcement officer. The municipal court does collect the fines from individuals who receive a citation. Again, in other jurisdictions, this operation is handled differently, not necessarily within a municipal court. It could be handled through another department, customer service or finance, if you will. And you can pay in person. You can mail in your payment, and then since we've been charging for on-street parking in Riverside Village, we've implemented a new online format for making a payment for your parking citation. If you are issued a parking citation and you don't pay within 2 days, that's calendar days, not business days, your fee is doubled. So your fee then jumps up to $40 since they're all, assuming this is of course a city fine, because they're all $20, you automatically jump to $40. And I will note that our current code does not list this particular fee increase or fine, if you will, for non-payment after 2 days. So this is something that we would likely need to get clarified within our city code. It's written on our citation, but it's not covered in the code. This is definitely one area I would like to pinpoint that really came about as soon as we started issuing tickets in October 2019. We would get calls from individuals who'd received a ticket, and they'd say, I admit I didn't pay the meter, or I parked where I wasn't supposed to, and I got a ticket, and I understand, and I'm willing to pay it. However, that was on a Friday, let's just say. And, I had my weekend, Monday rolls around, crazy Monday. By Tuesday, I'm like, oh, I need to pay my ticket, and boom, it's doubled. They just felt like such a quick process maybe was unfair. I hate to use that term, of course, but maybe unnecessarily quick. And so I know I heard that, municipal court heard that, our public safety officers heard that. So that might be something for us to consider. But I do just want to point that out. That is definitely something we've heard from folks. In the next slide, you'll see the other issue that we're going to need some guidance from you all on. To be frank, unpaid fines, so once it's doubled to $40, that's it. Your tickets remain on the books completely unpaid. We do not have any sort of system for escalation whereby you receive an additional fine or fee. We don't have a code provision for a wheel lock or putting a boot on someone's vehicle if they have an unpaid fine and we discover they're in violation again. Nor do we have a provision in the code for towing a car for unpaid tickets. Without, a better term, this can add up infinitely. There is no limit to the amount of unpaid fines someone can rack up. And again, since we began issuing, we have a number of repeat offenders in Riverside Village who regularly park where they shouldn't. They know they shouldn't. They have a number of unpaid parking fines, and they just continue to add up. We have no mechanism for enforcing that they pay the fine, which of course you hope would then lead to correcting of their behavior. If you go to the next slide, please. So one of the things that we want to share or hear from you tonight are some of the ways that you might be interested in making changes to our municipal code, and whether that's to the fine structure or the process of collection for non-payment. So one of the things that we can look at is the actual amount of the fines themselves. We could always adjust the fine. They don't necessarily have to be the same amount. The parking citations, particularly in Riverside Village, the goal is to get folks to comply with the regulations for on-street parking. We have the on-street parking requirements for a number of reasons, to include vehicle turnover, to include revenue generation, to help pay for our Riverside Village bonds. We don't necessarily want to be punitive. In a perfect world, we wouldn't issue any parking citations because folks would be parking where they're supposed to for how long they're supposed to, and they'd be feeding the meter, essentially. That would be in a perfect world. Another thing to consider is to adjust the late fee. Does it stay an automatic doubling? Does it increase on a graduated rate? There's a number of things to consider. And our municipal court clerk did a really good job, and she's researched and reached out to quite a few communities to find out all the various things that they do. And of course, nobody does anything the same. However, most communities at least have options and graduated fee schedules. In terms of the process, this really relates to non-payment of ticket. So like I mentioned, we don't currently have in our code that the payment period should increase beyond 2 days. It should be documented, whatever it is that we do, but definitely something to consider. Do we lengthen that amount of time that someone has before we issue a fine for late payment? I almost said the fine for the fine. And then also something to consider for individuals who have unpaid parking tickets. Do we consider incorporating into our code the possibility of putting a boot on a vehicle or towing of a vehicle if we come across them in violation again? Of course, we can always tow a vehicle if they're parked in a no parking zone or otherwise where it's posted. But this is specifically related to individuals that have unpaid parking citations. And the last slide is just simply a summary of next steps. We wanted to come to you tonight for discussion, to hear your feedback and to hear how you all feel about particularly the fine structure and the process for enforcing non-payment of these citations. We can discuss tonight. We can get more information that you all would like to get from us, but just wanted to turn it over to you all.
Well, Rachel, on the fee, and like you said, if you get a ticket on Friday and then, of course, Monday, like I said, you've had a bad, then you forget, oh my goodness. I mean, could we put in there maybe after, unpaid after 2 working days, that people, that way your ticket wouldn't be due really till about Wednesday?
That is most definitely one way that you could do it if you wanted to keep on
that way it's not
certain number of
counting.
days.
I mean, you know, that's the way it
I
is
think
with
2
the,
days is too short period. I
I
mean,
was
what if
thinking-
we have a visitor coming down for the weekend?
Yeah.
And they come to visit on Saturday and they get a ticket Saturday, they go back to Charleston. I mean, I've gotten tickets in other communities. You know, I would say, I'm talking maybe
a week.
2 weeks. I mean, 2 days to me personally is just.
I was
way
thinking
too short.
14 days or 30 days. One of the two.
I would think 30. I mean, because I mean,
Some at least 2 weeks.
To pay the fine.
I was
think it
thinking
should be
14 days as well.
14 to 13 or something. I mean, 30 days, but, I had a question. Are we having the issue mostly with employees? Do we think it is for the different facilities down there?
I think initially it was employees, and when I say initially, a couple years ago when we first started parking enforcement. Since both of the parking decks have been built, that's decreased significantly. Now, I can't speak. I don't know if Chief Thomas has heard any specifics, but we do know there are some businesses down there that have employees that regularly park as they should not. But I do think it's improved with employees of the businesses down there.
We did reach out, didn't we?
Yeah, we were
Yes.
supposed to,
I
because,
think we reached out
Yeah.
to those businesses.
Then my next question or statement, I guess, is before we talked about it a few years back about potentially having a yearly pass or something you could purchase. And if there's a way we can research what would be a good price for that for someone who's going to be down there a lot and, you know, would
I think
opt
it's
to
a
buy a yearly pass or something that would allow them to pass. I don't know if that's appropriate or a good idea, but it's just a suggestion. I know we tossed it around for a little while.
well, one thing said it was that, because I talked to Jim about that too, because we had a young girl that her mother did not want her to park in the parking deck because she's getting off late at night at southbound and having to go in that parking deck by herself. And so we talked about, I think, Jim, wasn't it, about the year thing, or another lady too had complained. But the way I understood that, who would enforce that? You know, that might be a little hard.
well,
Like,
I mean, if you have a pass, it's
parking pass
You buy
somehow.
a sticker, you know.
you
like
get
buy
either a
yearly
sticker or
stickers.
something that you hang in your
Like
mirror.
your car tag, April of 2022.
Yeah, I'd say a car sticker so that
Yeah.
you just transfer.
It's definitely something that we can consider. All of our parking fee structures in Riverside Village are set per our master parking agreement with the developer. So I'm not saying that it can't happen. I'm just saying that that is another element that we would need to renegotiate with them for. Also take into consideration, it's more than just paying for the parking, it's any time limits. So I don't know if this would be special super awesome pass where you could, you know, the Disney pass, you can get buy everything, but keeping in mind that part of the reason that we have the limits for parking on the street is, again, to increase the turnover so
Yeah.
folks don't
Everybody
park
can
there all
park.
day, all
Mhm.
night, etc.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I
Something to look into.
know last week when I was down at the amphitheater about 2:30, my wife and I were down. That was the first time she'd been out and been
That's
down
in the
there.
morning? In the morning?
No parking down there at 2:30 in the morning, Bob.
Parking then.
Just get clarification from you,
I
Bob.
did not blush. So. Anyway, at southbound there were two vehicles parked up on these. I guess it's the sidewalk where you go into the stadium, and then we parked in front of the amphitheater, and all the spaces were gone, and I didn't pay because I wasn't there for 10 minutes. And as soon as we got ready to leave, this little white Honda pulls up directly behind me, next to the curb. The driver gets out, locks it, and goes into southbound. So the car was sitting parked illegally in the turnaround.
That's what Diane LaRue was showing. Yeah, I saw a big old black pickup truck up on the grass median.
You know, the other thing down in Riverside Village, and I know I spoke with Rachel about this before, you know, if we're going by our rules till 2:30, then if somebody's down there working, I mean, there are times where, you know, I don't expect, you know, the people dropping off, you know, like the 18-wheelers were back in there to do their loading and unloading. And, you know, I do see where you know, if it's not during normal business hours, now I don't expect like a plumbing van or truck to be on the curb at 7 o'clock in the evening, but I mean, we work till 5 in the afternoon. You know, so I would imagine if we're handing out tickets to work vehicles, I mean, you know, that we should, because there is no loading and unloading zones down there, and that's something to consider too. I mean, it would need to be kind of a discretionary thing. You know, if you've got people obviously working at Swank or Rio or southbound, and they, you know, that little concrete area by the transformer, if they pull up there to get out the way because you're going to have to go in and out with tools, I can understand that. Now, as far as after working hours, which is typically 5 o'clock for most people, I mean, they shouldn't be parking there. But I mean, if you go to a game, I mean, that whole sidewalk's covered. Now that brings up another problem. How are we going to enforce golf carts? We don't know who owns them. And those golf carts, I mean, if y'all have been to a Green Jackets game, there's only 4 golf cart parking spaces, and that whole sidewalk will be covered with, I mean, there's a lot of problems down there. You know, and I think the golf cart thing needs to be expressed because, I mean, literally we have 4 spaces for them right there, and then I believe there's a few in the hotel parking garage, but there's not enough for the popularity of the golf carts, and that creates another problem. But, you know, again, I know I brought that up to you, I guess that's been about 2 years ago, about the, you know, a yearly parking pass. I think that will generate more revenue than unpaid parking tickets and people parking in general. Because if you frequent that area, now there can be exceptions, like you were saying with the master agreement. It's not anything with the on-street parking, is it? Or is it just the stadium? Okay.
It's all parking.
You create turnover.
Yeah.
And, you know, so you could still, and again, Chief, you're the expert on this. I mean, if an officer's down there and he comes back, you know, 4 hours later in the same vehicle with the tag, you know, there would have to be limitations to it. But I think it would be good to have a yearly pass. If you're going to grab dinner, you know, you want to do on-street parking and you have a pass, I mean, you still have 2-3 hours, whatever it is, you know. But if you're going for a game or something, I mean, I've gotten to the point that you just park in a parking deck. I know there's other people that will complain about it. The ones that complain about it, I'll say, go to a Falcons game, go to a Panthers game. You're not parking on the street right beside the stadium. You're having to park and walk. So I think it could be worked out, and if we could do that, I think that would be good. It'd be a good revenue generator for us. But we could still do, you know, the time limit. It just, I think what happens is you get down there, oh, I'm only going to be here a minute. So you run in, next thing you know, you're called up, oh, run into so-and-so, and then you end up talking for an hour. You know, next thing you know, oh, I've been in here an hour and a half. I think that would be a good thing, you know, as far as that goes. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of issues down there. You know, originally people were parking on the undone lots, but I think they've pretty much put the silt fence around that to stop that. Game nights don't seem to be too bad because most people know they're parking in the parking garage. But I think it's just day-to-day operations. I don't really think it's even game nights. I mean, it's certainly going to be more crowded. There are people down there. But we got to look at the whole process. I don't think it's just a matter of fines. But, you know, again, I bring up the golf cart. I mean, Chief, I mean, we don't have any way to issue tickets to a golf cart, do we? Since they don't have a tag, we don't know who they are.
We do. We can track those golf carts. They have a registration. They all have to be DOT registered. So, yeah, we can.
Yeah. But, I mean, that brings the point of you've got roughly, 10 golf cart spaces for all of Riverside Village. You know, do now golf carts take up normal parking spaces? Is that okay, or do they need to park in golf cart only? You know, I mean, there's a lot of things to think about because, you know, if they're taking up spots, it's kind of like when I go down to the boat ramp and, you know, people with their kayaks and their pickup truck and it says trailer parking only, and they figure, well, I can park 2 trucks back to back, and that's just the same. No, it's not. You can't maneuver a trailer as well, and that's the same thing with a golf cart. If they're taking up parking on street, it's something that needs to be looked at. And you know, and I'm not an enemy of golf carts. I plan on getting one here before too long, because it is nice to be able to, you know, hit the neighborhoods and get there. So, but I just think, as far as Riverside Village, I know when we first enacted this, I mean, I just gotten on council, and I was kind of against it because I understood that this was based on it being fully developed, and we're already seeing the issues we have with it not being fully developed, and once it is. But I think we need to take a long, hard look, especially at Riverside Village, because I think that's the root of most problems, Chief. And other than just somebody at Lowe's or Walmart that's parked in a handicap with that, we probably don't issue too many other parking tickets, I would assume. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's correct. You know, if you're in a handicap spot, as Rachel alluded to, that's a state statute, so that's a minimum fine on that's $500. So you don't have too many folks who will violate that. But you know, parking on the street, there's just no mechanism for us as public safety, you know, to enforce these things when you know, you either pay your ticket or you don't.
Right.
It's difficult.
Well,
Chief,
and
I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Under the parking violation fines, it stated parking in a loading zone.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have anything for parking in a fire zone. Is that the same area?
I think it said fire pump.
It's
but
a fire. It should say on there somewhere. I'm trying to find it, Bob.
it said fire pump.
It says a fire plug.
Yeah,
Fire plug.
that's right. So you can't park in front of obviously a fire plug. So is that what you're asking?
No, some of the
I think that's
stores have in front of them no parking, fire zone.
Well, and I think what needs to happen in that case, and I don't think we ever got around to it, but painting those curbings yellow,
Right.
which would prevent that from occurring. Therefore, we could issue tickets.
Okay,
But right now, they're not painted that color,
okay,
so therefore we can't enforce it.
thank you.
Chief, I have one other follow-up question too, or Rachel or Jim chime in. I mean, you know, talking about all this is fine and dandy, but do we have the resources to be able to carry it out? I mean, obviously, the officers aren't there every day checking all the meters. I guess it's when they've got some slack time, they might. But do we have, you know, the capability of enforcing all, you know, if we go ahead with this, are we going to need additional officers to enforce it?
Well, I do know that right now we're pulling a person off a traffic detail when we have in traffic and parking problems at Riverside Village. So yes, it becomes a resource issue for us, and so it takes away from what, you know, our daily duties are. Now again, what Rachel's proposing and whatever the council decides is what we're going to incorporate. But just say for instance the you know, the wheel lock, or you know, you can call it a lot of different things, but that's resources, because one, you got to put it on, two, you got to wait for the person to come back to the car, three, you got to take it off, and the fine's still got to get paid. So you know, you're talking about a lot of different moving parts here when you're talking about that one piece of equipment.
Right, and I would think the parking boots or towing would be a worst case scenario. If you've got the same vehicle that you've caught in violation 4 or 5 times, I could see using it then. Or, but you know, that's very extreme in my opinion. I mean, I'd hate to, as much as I wish we had parking boots for those kayak trucks,
Sure.
because you know, I can't park my trailer in a regular spot up the street. And I know Rick was opening that bottom so that they could park there, but I mean, you know, any Saturday and Sunday you go, you're lucky. You know, 5 or 6 of them are taken up by people that park trucks front to rear, and I know it's a pain, and I know y'all come down there and issue tickets, but they obviously don't get it. But I would say, you know, after you have a certain number of tickets, that would be the only time I would say, okay, you need to do a boot on them. Hey, this is ticket number 4 in a 2-month period. Maybe you should, but I still think it's a bad idea because of the manpower needed to do it.
Right.
And then, is every officer going to have a parking boot in their car, or do they have to call someone else now to be able to, hey, I need you to bring the parking boot down here. I found someone in violation. And so now we're taking another, you know, now we got 2 officers tied up on a parking violation. You know,
Correct.
so in my opinion,
I mean, I'd agree with you. I would assume that we'd have some kind of structure Chief, that, you know, after the sixth violation or something, or, four
No.
or five unpaid tickets, we could, I'm saying we don't, I'm saying if we structure it this way and we say, okay, we're gonna start incorporating booting or whatever, that yes, we would create a structure that says, you know, if you got 6 violations and, you know, whatever the structure would be, 30 days or whatever, that yes, now we have the right to boot your car, and then we create a whole process and what it takes for you to get it off and all that kind of thing. So I mean, yes, I mean, right along what you're
Be
saying, Eric,
extreme.
you just can't, not your first violation, you get a boot, but
Right.
we're looking for repeat offenders and some way to enforce it and get some teeth in what we have on our parking issues, so the people that are, you know, violating it continually, we can get a hold of them. And I think that's what you're looking for, right? Guidance on how we can enforce this better.
Yes, sir.
Increasing the fines or turning in, I don't know, I don't know the law, so I don't know if it's something like, you know, you get 4 or 5 or 6 tickets, now it becomes a non-moving violation or something. I don't know how that could
Well,
possibly work, if it
there's
can escalate in that fashion. I don't know.
And towing would be just as extreme as well. I
Yeah,
mean,
same-
either way
same.
you do it. Chief, is there a mechanism that the officers have? Let's say David doesn't ever pay, and he goes down there, and he gets 4 tickets. I mean, can they look up and say, well, this guy's got, 4 tickets? I mean, I'm assuming we're set up to do that as is now, or is it we just write them and that's that?
Well, at this point, we write them, and if during business hours, and obviously dispatch may have some knowledge of this, but we won't know until next business day if they, have multiple tickets against them or not. So again, it goes back to, we don't have any teeth in this because this ordinance, and I think Kelly, you remember, this is way back in maybe the 80s. This ordinance was passed, and maybe even earlier than that. So when we changed the fee in 2018, this is what we got. We increased the fines, but again, there's no mechanism in place to I guess, kind of dangle that carrot out, and that you can have as many as you want right now, and it's difficult for us to enforce.
Chief, talk to me about the towing aspect. What are the advantages, disadvantages of that versus manpower? You don't have it. You just call a tow truck,
Correct.
right?
Yes, sir.
And they get charged. So, I mean, what would be the negative to that?
I think you'd have to look at, like some of the council persons have mentioned, the number of violations you have against you. Like if you're a repeat offender, then obviously if we tow your car, then there's a reason and a need to tow your car because you've got unpaid traffic violation. So I guess the positive to that would be it ends at that point. That means you got to go to the record driver to get your car, and you also got to pay that fine. So that kind of takes care of that problem quickly. The negative side of that is, you want to try to create and educate a user-friendly park down there, and that's obviously what we want to do. But at this point, we just can't track it because there's a mechanism in place.
Chief, do you recall the SALT and law enforcement together program that was in place for many years?
I've heard about it. Bob.
Is that still around?
No, sir.
Okay. That was a program where we had senior citizens who were certified in writing tickets, parking tickets. And we had some volunteers that did that on a weekly basis.
Hold it.
I'm sorry. I'm just laughing. Barney Fife. Yeah. Or Gomer Pyle. That's who it was. Now, I have a question, Chief, and I know over the years we have had trouble not only parking collecting fines, but when you do another crime. Are these people, when they get these fines, it's like $20, are they rushing down there to pay them, or it's just something going to be on the books for the next 100 years?
That's right.
That somebody owes something.
That's
I
right.
mean, we've always had that trouble.
Yeah, how
and-
much unpaid fines do we have out there?
Oh,
About $1
a
million
lot.
a year almost. It's about $1 million. How much is it?
I really don't know.
It's a
David.
large
I'd
But
number.
now,
I know
wait a minute
that.
now, in defense for sometimes people, I know we used to not take MasterCards, and, you know, when people, yeah, it is a large number. I mean, it was ridiculous. Yeah. But I mean, when they come in to pay their fine, do we have to say, you've got to have cash to pay us? Or can they use a debit card?
They can.
I mean,
They
we
can.
talked about that over the years, that it was a problem. And that's why we were losing money. Because when people would come and they didn't have cash, well, we'll pay you next month. And that was the last you saw of them.
Cash is
Uh-huh.
dirty.
And then one more question, back to what Bob was saying about the fire lanes. And I know we're talking about Riverside Village, but over at Belks and Jersey Mike and all that, you know, they have that lane. It says fire lane. You cannot park right in front of the building. So I guess what sort of Bob was saying, and I hate to say, but I've been that part right there and run into Jersey Mike, pick up my sandwich and take off. But do we enforce that?
We do enforce parking all over the city, but it's difficult and challenging because of the resources that
Yeah,
are
you're
tied to
right,
other
right.
things. So, again, if it becomes a priority, then that's what we're gonna have to do. But it's gonna take some resources to get it done.
But I think too, I mean, I like the passes, but I think we're going to have to figure out how to do that, because if I get a year pass and I decide I'm going down there for 8 hours,
Well, that's when you would use the
I
parking
mean-
garage like going to a game. I mean, it would just
yeah,
be
we'll
for,
have to do something to, you can't have a parking pass all 24/7,
right.
you know.
Right.
And it could
Yeah.
be not valid on game days or something. I mean, you know, there's things you could do. One thing I would like to see, I don't know, you know, it sounds like the focus of this has shifted to Riverside Village, and it is a mess down there. But Chief, one thing I would like to see if we implement anything would be, we don't know how many of these people are visitors to our town. I mean, if you've ever been out of town, I'm guilty. Got one in Edisto, and I'm like, I don't even want to come back here now. You know, we don't want to send that, so I would hope that, you know, maybe the first ticket is a warning. Hey, you're parking in a no parking place, you know, if somebody catches it, because we don't know, you know, there are people that travel here and they may be staying at the hotel and they may think, well, here's the hotel, I'm gonna park on the street, not thinking about it. Or there has been instances where sometimes the machines are down and you can't, and I know I had that asked you that, and generally y'all have been forgiving them, but you know, if somebody's here from out of town, they get here Friday, they're leaving Sunday, you know, is that the image we want to portray? And so I would hope, you know, it at least be a warning. That way, if it is someone traveling or somebody that doesn't frequent the area very much, they would know when they come back, hey, I better park, I better pay, because, you know, I got a warning last time I was here. I would hope maybe we could do something like that.
Except, you know, some people's position is, I'm here today and I'm never going to be here again. So I'll park wherever I want to park, however long I want to park, and I'm not worried about the ticket.
Well, yeah, and that's why I say, you know, because we don't know who those people are, and that's why I say, you know, because if it is a visitor or somebody, say someone from Augusta, first time over here, and then boom, they get hit with a ticket, they may be apt to say, I'm not coming back there again. They slapped me a ticket that quick.
Agree with that.
You
I
know.
don't think that doesn't concern me. That part doesn't concern me.
Well, I mean, we want people to visit the area. I'm just saying, you
But
know.
when you look at, I think about all the places you travel around. I mean, everybody has parking. That to me is just kind of standard. I think the issue for us is we're not enforcing it, and we need to give Chief guidance on.
We just, we don't have a mechanism or a way, and then, like I say, it just sounds to me like to keep doing this, it's going to require more resources. I just, that we don't have. I mean, it's a catch-22, really.
Yeah, Tony.
Sounds like to me we're all in agreement, though, that there is an issue in Riverside Village and that we do need to have a new process and a way to enforce the fines and have a way for a consequence, I guess, for people. So, and I guess I would be thinking, Rachel, if there's like other cities similar to ours or looking at other areas that have a similar system to kind of propose to us, or have a few proposals that we can review and see what we like and dislike and kind of nitpick from there, because I think we're all in agreement on some change.
Okay, and I appreciate that, and we can definitely do that. We wanted to see if there was anything, you know, completely off the table, so we didn't go down that road in terms of doing research and providing some options for you, but we can absolutely do
I mean,
that.
and again, the boots, I would think is the last resort, but, you know, maybe we should have something for that, unless it's a blatant thing, like, you know, this is a fire zone. You know you're not supposed to park here. I mean, if we want to do that, but then I'm assuming all of our officers would need a boot in their car, pretty much, Chief. So we've got the cost of that, if that's something we
Well,
can
I'd say
swing.
let's do a comparison. I don't know why the towing is attractive to me. To me, that takes our officers out of it.
Yeah, I think
Mr. Mayor,
it's-
that's actually,
And that's the part I'd like to find out. To me, towing would solve a lot of that, in my opinion.
we've had some, I've had some dialogue with some of the local towing companies, and so I think there is at least an industrial base there to support that option. And, I know the boots are an effective way to do it, but to the point of the council is that it's manpower intensive, and there's a fair amount of labor that goes along with that, and it puts a lot of load on Chief, and his team specifically. So, I'm, not that I was asked, but between boots and towing is one of those areas where, it's easier to enforce that and then have that be outsourced, if you will, so city personnel are not dealing with, the residuals of that.
People do not like to be inconvenienced, so that would certainly put a point to them, I think.
I mean, I could support the towing as long as it's not a first, second offense.
Oh, yeah,
I
but
mean,
not the
as
first
long
time.
as, like well,
that would drive people away from
No.
the city.
That
well, I
would be
mean,
an
you
extreme.
go to some of these towns, and I mean, it literally says,
Towing will be.
Yeah.
towing right away. So
We haven't
you know.
gotten to that point, I don't think. And just as a reminder, we are dealing with an animal we've never dealt with before. And, in the beginning, looking at parking in Riverside Village, I think we elected not to do any loading zone markings or yellow curb just for the beautification of the area. We didn't want to have those things. I remember that being a discussion. So, I mean, if we're now at that point that we need to do that, then I guess we need to address, yellow curbs and so forth. But I think, just for other people, education, understand, we didn't do that in the beginning because we were trying to, like I said, this is new. It was new, and we didn't want to, not keep the beauty of the area. So we chose not to do those things in the city's defense. But yes, if we're at that point, then that's probably some of the things that we need to look at, the suggestions on how to move forward with these. I definitely want to see us look at other ways to have more golf cart parking and be able to regulate that a little bit better. Because I've been down there, and then there's cars parked in the golf cart parking and things like that. But, definitely we need to come up with a proposal to
Let me ask
make
you,
things better.
do we need to address, the issue for me with the parking meters is just that the numbers are on the road. I mean, in the daytime maybe, but at night, is there not a way that we could help alleviate, have we had a conversation about how to number those spaces a different way?
We have. The mechanism that we currently use is designed for ease, if you will, so that you can park anywhere and then pay at any particular meter. You don't have to go to the meter near your car. You don't have to put the ticket in your window. It's all digital, so it's got your license plate. Everything is just done at the meter, and you walk away and you're done. Additionally, the reason for painting on the street is to reduce sign pollution, because then otherwise you're erecting a sign at every single
What about
parking
on
place.
the curb? Why can't we paint the number on the curb?
You may not be able to see it once you park and get out. I mean, because a lot of times I have to walk around the truck just to look
Yeah.
where I can see it, and if it's behind the curb and you're that close, it might be harder to see.
I'm with you, but to me, that's easy.
Or maybe at the front of the
Get on
curb.
my knees and look under the car.
Or maybe
and
at the
see what
front or the
number
back
is.
of the curb, you put two numbers in that space or something. I mean, I don't disagree.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, there's a default there because regardless of what number you put down in the machine, if you have your tag number in there, that's kind of the default.
Is that right? I mean, I don't use
So,
that.
For your tag number.
if I'm correct, if I'm
I go to
No,
the parking
correct
you're
me if
right,
I'm wrong,
because they
but-
can search by parking space number
So if you put your
and
tag number in the machine,
Oh, I didn't know
and
you
not
could put the
necessarily
tag number.
So
the
you have
right
to put
number.
your license tag into the machine?
You're
I've
supposed
never
to.
done that.
you can. It's an
You
option.
can, it's an option. You can do either one,
Yeah.
I think. Either
Yeah.
the parking number
Choices.
or the
For your
tag.
tag.
Why are we too many options? Just one thing, do it.
What about putting it on the
with the app.
road itself?
That's where it's at.
That's where it is.
No, it's at the top. I'm talking about, excuse me, let me clarify that. On the side, like just where your car door is on that side. Like when you open your door, you see it. I'm like Mayor Williams. I have to get out sometime looking. Where's the number? You know. And
The parallel parking spaces, it is that way. It's about midway.
but I mean more toward like if this is your car, it's more on this side, not at the top of the
It's
where your
it's like near where the driver door would
door
be.
is.
Mhm.
Okay. I guess I've missed that then.
You're telling on how many times you paid for parking, Ms. Pat.
Self.
I park in the garage.
Let me say that
I'm just
Pat
joking.
Carpenter does pay for her parking down
I'm
there.
just joking.
Throw $2 under the windshield wipers, and we'll have someone by to collect it.
I did visit a city where you only had to do your license tag number, so there was no numbers involved. So I don't know if that would be a whole technology change for down there or something like that, but that would get you the one option where you just plug in your license tag
That's what
number
I'm
and you
saying,
can park
one
any
thing and don't
spot. It
give
didn't
a
matter a number. Yeah.
If you use the app, the Parks Smarter app, you can put your license plate number in. For that
It's,
reason.
we don't have as many problems of them not working anymore that we had in the beginning.
I have not heard many at all.
Yeah, they've all been good when I've been down there. I mean, most of the towns you go to that have this similar situation, though, I mean, you just get used to parking in a parking garage. You go to downtown Charleston or Savannah, and I know we can't compare us to that, but when I've gone down to Savannah or Charleston, I just park in the parking garage. I mean, it's a $5-10 a day thing. I've never thought about parking on the road in Savannah because I'm like, I don't have that many quarters for one. So, I think it is informing people, but that's not here or there. It's what do we do once they do have a ticket.
So Rachel, Ms. Moody, have you been given some idea what we're looking for?
Yes, thank you.
She's like, I have no clue.
I have all my notes.
So a couple things. So here's what I'm hearing, that we definitely need to address the payment period. 14 days, 30 days, I don't know, I would think 2 weeks would be minimum. It'd be interesting. I'm kind of like Jennifer. For me, it helps to know, and even though a lot of communities do things different, it'd be nice if we could find a couple of communities that are growing and thriving, because that's what we expect Riverside Village to be, and start thinking about, look at those comparisons to give us some points of it to look at. And then I'm going to put the hand up for looking at the towing piece, whatever that entails. That to me hits me as being the most attractive. And then, and I'm assuming $20 a fine, is that pretty standard? I mean, is that not enough? Is that too low? I mean, I don't know.
I won't tell you what the one in Edisto I got was, $150. Oh, but they've got all sorts of crazy rules. I pulled over the side of the road to go get my wife's keys to move her car so I could back the boat in. So they got me for facing the wrong way of traffic. Had the truck on a lot, but a little bit of it was on the sidewalk. I mean, it's, so there you go.
So what other areas do we need to, what else do we need to let them focus on? Golf carts?
Golf
Okay.
carts.
Golf carts.
Now, do we have a bicycle park? When we first started Riverside, we talked about a lot of golf cart spaces, and then we sort of backed off of it. Do we have a bicycle that you can park your bike?
I think there's one.
There are bicycle
Yeah, there's
racks,
bicycle
They are,
racks.
okay,
Yes.
all right.
particularly along the stadium.
What about a dock to park our boats?
You have the parking fine for that too? As soon as we get the dock, we'll have a parking fine for that.
That's how we're paying for the dock, Councilman, is with parking fines.
Oh, well, then let's get all the fines going. Come on.
Yeah, get the fines enforced. Make them $50.
Rachel, when you look too, if you could kind of see like their staffing structure for it too, to see like the manpower that it takes, if we start enforcing all this, I think that would be helpful too. I know you mentioned code enforcer, officer, or something like that, but to be sure we're not pulling everybody off the line. And when we implement all that, I think would be helpful.
We can definitely do that. I'll tell you from what we've seen around the state, most are civilians. They're not law enforcement.
So you're not going to bring us an episode of Parking Wars to watch, I'm assuming.
No.
It's time to think outside the box. I like it. Okay. So you got enough that you need?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Anything else before I read item 2 and we adjourn and go into executive session? Any other thing at this point from anybody on council? Okay, they say the third time is the charm, so I'm gonna see if I can do it right this time. Item 2, in compliance with section 30-470A2, the city administrator requests an executive session for the purpose of discussion, negotiations, incident to proposed contractual arrangements and proposed sale or purchase of property, the receipt of legal advice where the legal advice relates to a pending, threatened, or potential claim, or other matters covered by the attorney-client privilege, settlement of legal claims, or the position of the public agency, and other adversary situations involved in the assertion against the agency of a claim. This discussion tonight is related to contractual agreements involving parking and to include review of the MEDAC parking agreement and the master parking agreement for Riverside Village. And we will not be coming back into council chambers. So with that, do I have a motion to go into executive
So
session?
moved.
Mr. McGee, a second, and Mr. Presnell. Okay, all in favor? That's unanimous. Okay, we did it. All right, we can stand adjourned.